Hello, my name is Heath Spencer. I'm the CEO of TraitWare. We're here to talk to you about Zero Trust access for your users. We believe that Zero Trust access needs to start with the human to machine. With 80% of every data breach, ransomware attack, and more happening from misused credentials, we believe that it's time to kill the password. To do this, we've created a software-based token that you deploy on a device you already carry, your mobile device, and you can use this to then access and log in to all of your web-connected screens. You have passwordless, multi-factor authenticated login in 3 touches from a device you already carry. We're going to show you how simple this is by deploying this to your business email. We're going to use Google Workspace as an example of this in 5 minutes. And this will show you an example of how to get started using passwordless MFA for Zero Trust access. So let's look at the screen. On my screen, I'm going to click free trial. Going to enter my stuff. There it goes. And I'm going to click get started. So what it's doing right now is it's sending me an email to register my mobile device as a smart token. All right, so I've just received my email after setting up my admin console. I'm going to open the email from support at TraitWare. I'm going to click on the blue button to automatically go out and get the app. It's going to take me to the App Store. Click open. Once I'm in the App Store, just click download. Once the app's downloaded, just open it as you normally would. And it's just a couple steps to finish the registration in the app, which is just adding my biometric as my authentication to the app. During the app registration, we're also creating a unique token of you. So now that my app's registered, I have successful access to my TraitWare admin console. Now that I have my app registered, I can visit my admin console from the same website. Right at the top, I just click admin login. From admin login, I'm just going to scan the Onetime QR code to authenticate to the administrative console. Now that I'm in the administrative console, I have my account created here for my access to add users and applications. I'm going to launch that administrative console. You can see that I've been added as the admin and the user that's there. So the first thing we need to do is add an application. So I'm going to click on application. You can see that there's no applications here. I'm going to click add an application. We're going to use SAML 2.0 to add a Google Workspace account and domain. So I click on SAML. With this one, we have templates created. So all I need to do is click on use a template. Scroll down to Google Workspace, click on that. I'm going to click Submit, and it's going to launch this. Now in here, where it says Your Org, all I need to do is insert what my organization domain is going to be, which is twmfa.net. Again, if I could type, this would go better. I'm going to copy that. And then I'm just going to insert that in the 5 locations it says your org. Now that I have that copied in there, I'm just going to hit save. I'm going to go back into the application. I'm going to go to provider credentials. And here I want to go and copy or download the .pem file for the certificate that I need to insert into Google. So I'm going to copy that, or actually download that. The application's been saved and all this stuff's been set up in Google. I need to go back to my users. I'm going to select myself. I'm going to go to Applications, and I'm going to turn on Google Workspace. So now I just provisioned myself to use Google Workspace for passwordless MFA access. Now I can visit a login page by visiting SSO login. So instead of being presented with a username and password, I will be presented with a Onetime QR code. Then I'm going to go to my mobile app on my phone, going to select the account that I want to authenticate to. It's going to scan my face. I'm going to click Scan QR Code to sign in to my Google Workspace. Now I'm authenticated in 3 touches from a device I already carry with a passwordless multi-factor authenticated login to Google Workspace. This deploys a zero trust access to Google Workspace in 3 touches from the device I'm already carrying, using multi-factor authentication inherent in that login. It's not an option and it's not an extra step. This reduces friction for me as the user. It also reduces cost for you as the business owner. Now that we've configured zero trust access for users to Google Workspace, we're going to take a deeper dive in how you would actually deploy this technology to more applications, more use cases, as well as how to provision users and sync them to your different environments. This will show you how, by registering your mobile device as a secure token that creates a uniqueness for you based on your trait characteristics using machine learning, etc., to separate you to greater than 1 in 300 billion, it gives you this multi-factor authenticated login. And we'll look further at how all the different factors, with up to 5 factors we can add that are transparent for all of your users, bringing a high level of security for zero trust access with reducing friction for your user. All right, so now that we've added a Google Workspace application to our TraitWare console, I'm going to show you how to simply sync users from your Google IDP over to the TraitWare console so that you can provision all of your users. So in these steps, I'm going to download the users from Google and then import them into the TraitWare admin panel. So what I'm going to do is visit my admin console for my Google account, go to users, then I can click download users, and then we want to do this as a CSV file, currently selected columns, and then click download. Once we've done that, then I can go back to my admin panel. I can click on user actions in the admin panel and say import users. Once I've done that, I'm going to open the downloaded file in a plain text file. Going to copy just the users and their names and email addresses. Once I've copied those, I'm just going to paste them into the admin panel, click preview. It'll let me know which ones it's adding, and then I'll click submit users, and it'll give me green checkboxes for all the ones that it provisioned. It didn't provision me because I was already in there. I can then close that. And now that I have all these users in my admin panel, you can see how we can move to just single one-button provisioning or deprovisioning of an application for each users, or do that in bulk. So I'm going to click on a user here. I'm going to click on applications, and then I'm going to click on turn on Google Workspace for this user. Once that's saved, I can go back to the users and do that for the other users as well. If we had other applications added to this console, you would see that how you can provision a user to different applications, etc., to add these either to an SSO portal or to a single siloed account access from the same authentication app. The other things I can do once I've provisioned users to these different applications is if I need to add more security to our token-based access, I can actually create a GPS-based location authentication factor for the token itself using the GPS module based in your mobile device. This moves us off of using IP addresses as location services to actually locking the token down to being in the location that you specify for authenticating to the different environments that you want to control that way. This creates another factor for us, but maintains transparency for the user. The user will never see this or have to do it as an extra step. So if I want to do that, I would just go to locations for this domain, and then I can click on create new location. I can either choose the entire United States as a location just to ensure that my users are within the US for access, or I can pick it by a state. So I could just choose, let's say, California, and have the entire state. If I want to go beyond the state of California, I could pick a specific address. In this massive move to remote work, you might want to set up your office location as well as a remote work location for your users. This could be just the city that they live in, etc. So let's just set a city in California. We could say Sacramento. So then I can choose the city of Sacramento and have it locked down to just the city of Sacramento. Once I've done this, I can click, location name. I'm just going to say city of Sacramento. And then I can click save location. Once I create a location, I need to add users to that location. So I'm going to I'm just going to select all of the users and add the users to the location. Once I've done that, then I can go back to my users, click on locations, click enforce location for user, and he's set to the city of Sacramento. So now I have a GPS-based factor that's transparent to the user based on the token access for the user for Google Workspace. So that's how you would provision location-based access control for another factor if you needed to add additional factors for security. The other features that we have, so going back to applications, if I wanted to add other applications, any application that can use SAML, OpenID Connect, and we have an OIDC Windows credential provider, which I'll show you in just a moment, where you can actually use Zero Trust MFA passwordless access directly to your Windows box, as well as any other application that has OAuth 2.0. We'll also show you a console that's been set up and provisioned for multiple applications, as well as a user signing in to an SSO portal, or as well as to multiple applications inside of a single pane of glass from their Authenticator app. The other thing we have is activity logs. So inside the activity logs here, you'll see for this account all the actions I've taken to either create location-based services or anything else that's there, the authentication to the admin console, the authentication to Google Workspace, etc., provisioning this typical user. These are all things that you could pull into your Splunk tool or your SIM tool, etc., to drive whatever parameters you want for alerts on any of the access controls that you have for this. Again, using Zero Trust from the human to machine across the entire application network. All right, so now that we've provisioned an admin panel for Zero Trust management of users, etc., I'm going to show you an authentication of actually logging into that admin panel. We're going to access one that has multiple applications set up so you can see what that would look like as well. We'll then move beyond that to actually seeing what it looks like to authenticate to other applications or other environments from that console for the user experience side of it. So on the left-hand side of my screen, you can actually see a mirrored image of my phone that I'm using as my software-based token. As you can see on that screen, I've actually got multiple accounts. This allows me as a user to have a single pane of glass to different siloed environments. It gives me a unique identity to each one of those environments, but I can have passwordless MFA login to each one of those environments in 3 touches. For this example, I'm going to log into our admin console that we just went through to set up the other Google Workspace account. So I'm going to select a different account, or my TraitWare internal account, and as you can see on my mobile device on the screen on the left, all of my applications that I have access to as a user came up on my mobile device. This allows me to work directly on my mobile device as well as to my laptop, a desktop, a TV screen, etc. Any screen that allows for web connectivity, I can have this same authentication. So I have passwordless, multi-factor authenticated login directly on my mobile device to these accounts or applications, as well as to my laptop. So if I wanted to log into, let's say, AWS to manage that environment, I would just click the tile on my phone, and it's going to authenticate me with passwordless MFA directly on my mobile device to our AWS environment. Let's say I wanted to authenticate to that same AWS environment on my laptop. All I would do is revisit my TraitWare app, select the account that's associated with that access. It's going to scan my face for the biometric part of the application or the MFA. I'm going to refresh my one-time QR code, and it is a one-time QR code. In essence, it's a one-time passcode that I don't have to type in. To authenticate to that on my desktop or my laptop, all I'm going to do, and I'll bring back up my phone, is click QR login, scan the QR, and it happens really fast, and you can see QR was successful, and it just authenticated me to our admin console. So from there, I would go in to manage that console. So you can see we have a whole list of users. You can see whether or not they're active, whether or not they've got admin access, whether or not we're enforcing geolocation, whether or not they've got a registered device, whether or not I need to delete their device, etc., all from that admin console. Again, going back to applications, here we have a whole list of applications that are provisioned for this domain. You can see the type of integration that's available for that or that we've configured for this domain, whether that's SAML, OAuth, OIDC, etc. You can see if we're offering direct login, which was the login that I did where I could directly log in from my mobile device, as well as a tap to login, which would be where I need to send the user a push for an accept or decline access instead of using the QR to scan. We know that there are some environments that you may have that you may not want a camera to take a picture of the screen, etc. So we do have the availability to do a push for accept decline passwordless access in those environments. Again, going back to locations, we've got all these different locations set for different users in different environments. Another feature is user sync. From user sync, I can pull all of my users in any directory that I have, whether that's LDAP, Azure, a hybrid Azure, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud, etc. And we've got graph APIs, etc., so that you can sync all of the users there. Also from Azure, you can run group mappings. So from the group mappings within your AD, you can provision or deprovision to applications, etc., using the group mappings that exist in your local or on-prem or your Azure Cloud Active Directory. Again, going back, activity logs for all of that. So that is simple ways to do the administration of that. I do want to make sure that we're clear in saying that if I selected on a user and I select on the applications that that user has access, I can move to just-in-time provisioning because I do not have to provision a username and password and then a bolt-on multi-factor authenticated access control. I can deploy all of this with a single radio button. So let's say I want to deploy this user to Cisco WebEx for just temporary access. One radio tick box is going to grant them access to that. One radio tick box, and it deprovisions them. So I can move to a position of managing user access via tokens with one radio tick box. I no longer have to provision or deprovision credentials for that access control. Let's see what it looks like for the user authenticating to different environments. So I'm going to log in at login.traitware.com. So back to that same process, and I'll bring my phone screen back up. So on the left-hand side, you can see my phone screen. I would just open up the TraitWare app, and I'm going to click QR-based login. I'm going to select just an Office 365 login. As a siloed environment from my app, I'm going to scan the QR code, and it's going to authenticate me to my Office 365 environment. So I've got Microsoft logins for that. Now I click no because I have to do this demo over and over and over. So I don't want to stay signed into that, but it authenticates me to Microsoft Office 365 environment. 3 touches, no typing. I could also access that directly on my mobile device. Let's do another login that's for a single sign-on portal. So that was an example of a siloed single application, but from the same software token that I'm using. So I'm going to sign out of this. I'm going to sign out of the user portal. And then I'm going to go back to my software token. I'll bring my phone back up on the screen here. And I'm going to select just my TraitWare internal account. Scanning my face for my biometrics as part of my MFA. Again, I could access any one of these accounts on my mobile device, or I can do QR login. And this is a login to my SSO portal for all of the applications that are in here. So again, we showed AWS on the mobile device, If I wanted to authenticate to AWS on my laptop or my desktop, etc., I again just click that tile and I authenticate. 3 touches, no typing, no extra steps for MFA, and now I've authenticated to my Amazon Web Services Management panel. If I go back to my portal, I could also access my Google Workspace environment, and it would bring up all of the applications that I have inside of Google. So that's a simple user experience for that authentication. So we're going to take it a step beyond that. And let's say you need to actually lock down the physical box of your laptop or your desktop. So now I'm going to show you a TraitWare authenticated login directly to a Windows machine. So I'm going to sign out of everything, put my box to sleep here. So now that my box is asleep, I would do the same thing of open up my TraitWare app on my phone, select the account that's associated with this laptop sign in, scans my face. On the laptop, it's also going to then bring up the QR login. So I just do that, scan the QR code, and now I've just authenticated to my Windows box. So now that I'm signed into my Windows machine, I now have MFA access from the user to the box itself as well. This allows us to control access to the box. You can have multiple users on the box, etc. And then from there, in a typical day, you would sign into your box. You've got some applications that are directly on your box, native to the machine, right, on your desktop, etc. But let's say you need to go that next step further and then authenticate to your web-based or cloud-based apps, which is what we already went through. So that's a login for that. Now, a unique thing for TraitWare is we do have the availability to do passwordless MFA login via SSH or SFTP to a Linux environment. We're going to show you that next. All right, so let's talk about why TraitWare is zero trust for the human to machine interface. There's multiple facets of zero trust, but the premise is that not that we don't trust the user, or my company doesn't trust me as the user, but that we want to verify that it is me that's accessing the applications that I'm authorized to access each time I go to access them. So to do that, I need to know that it's requiring me to authenticate to my access portal each time, and that someone couldn't be misusing my access. Currently, with credentials, billions and billions of sets of those have been stolen and are for sale on the dark web. They just stuff them in everywhere. It's also easy to have them phished. If we eliminate the credentials, or as Dr. Chase Cunningham likes to say, #kill the password, so that it can't be stolen or misused, that's what we've focused on. So what we do is we take something you carry every day, your mobile device, and we turn this into a secure token for you. When you register the app, which we've already gone through today, we're creating a unique identity of you based on your trait characteristics and the way that you interact with your mobile device. We each use our mobile devices in different ways. The way that we do that is changing and evolving on a daily basis. This allows us to create a process that we've actually just received our second patent on that separates you to greater than 1 in 300 billion. That's how unique your trait characteristics are in the way that you use your mobile device. So once we create a secure token, right, based on those trait characteristics that's so unique that it's greater than 1 in 300 billion, we can then use that token as one factor in a multi-factor authenticated login. Another factor to have multi-factor authentication is your native biometric. This works hand in hand with basically the behavioral biometric that we use to create based on your trait characteristics. The behavioral biometric is also dynamic. It's changing and evolving over time. This allows us to essentially recut the key each time you authenticate to the applications that you're using. This is where the zero trust part comes in. Because we're recutting the key between each use in that behavioral biometric, it's constantly verifying my token is the token that was registered when we onboarded myself as a user or yourself as a user. I then get to take advantage of the native biometric reader that's in my token. In my case, I use Face ID. You might use a fingerprint reader. This works for iOS or Android devices. This allows me to layer on what I actually am using my biometric, as well as the behavioral biometric that we created when we registered the token. That gives me 2 factors so far. I also want to speak to the idea that people get concerned about biometrics being used as an authenticator, and that if someone steals my biometric, I can't change it like I can change a password. This is a misconception that's out there, and also the way that TraitWare does it, you the user stay in possession of that biometric. It never leaves the device. In fact, we don't know what it is, Apple doesn't know what it is, etc. It's stored in the secure enclave and created when you first register the biometric on your mobile device. Also, when you're registering the app, this biometric needed to be pre-registered. You cannot register a biometric after the fact. For security reasons, the biometrics that are registered prior to registering the app are the only ones that are allowed to be used. We also lock the app to the biometric. There's no backdoor. You can't use a password. You can't use the phone's master PIN. It must be tied to that biometric if you choose the biometric as the authentication to the software token. This is the other aspect of zero trust, is I actually have to authenticate using my biometric to access the Authenticator app. This is different than most of the Authenticator apps that are out there. This is before even getting to the point of releasing my identity payload to the relying party, the application that I want to sign into. This allows us to incorporate zero trust framework for that user to machine access, the human to machine access, each and every time I go to log in. But again, it was passwordless, and I was able to do so in 3 touches. The other aspect of biometrics in using them on your mobile device is that because they're opaque and they never leave this device, and the mathematical equation that's created of your physical biometric is unique to this device. So with Apple and iOS, they bake it into the chip in the secure enclave when they create the phone. They don't know what that mathematical template is. We won't know what that mathematical template is, and you won't know what that mathematical template is. This is also where people misunderstand how biometrics are used for authentication. Now, they can be used different ways, but using them on a mobile device that you carry every day protects you because you possess it. If the device gets lost or stolen, etc., that mathematical representation of that can't be taken out of that secure enclave. You also, if your company's running MDM software and wipe the device, you can wipe all that stuff out. But you, the user, are staying in possession of it. It's not stored in some cloud server or out of your possession. Also, as an example, it's just a mathematical representation that's created unique to that token. If you get a new phone and have to re-register, you're actually going to re-register a new mathematical representation of your physical biometric, as well as we're going to re-register a new behavioral algorithm, right? That's going to create a new mathematical representation of that based on your trait characteristics to generate the secure token that you're going to use to access the other applications, either on your mobile device or to the other screens. We can then add other layers of factors. We already discussed being able to add GPS-based factor on the actual token. This allows us to use location as a factor. The one-time passcode in the QR is a factor. I want to be clear that there's no identity payload delivered inside of the QR. It's just a simple one-time passcode that you don't have to type in. You just scan it from your phone and you're done. We can also use a knowledge-based factor in this side of the access of the TraitWare app, where we use a proprietary process called PhotoAuth. We install a unique set of images because people can remember pictures better than they can remember numbers or passphrases, etc. So if you want to layer in or just use a knowledge-based factor as access to the Authenticator app, we deploy these pictures. You select 5 out of 24 or up to 6 out of 72, depending on how secure that you want that to be, and you select those images and can log in using a knowledge-based factor to the Authenticator app. You could have this layered on top of your biometric or use it as standalone. So you can either have 2-factor to the app plus GPS location plus the one-time passcode of the QR, or you could have up to 5 factors if you did knowledge base, biometric, secure token, QR, and GPS. But the amazing part of all of this, except for the PhotoAuth pin, all of them are transparent to me, the user. I log in 3 touches. So that's a little bit of how TraitWare is deploying a secure token for zero trust access. Now, if we look at the slide that's up on the screen, you can see in the bottom center the image of the token, the TraitWare app. On the right-hand side of the screen, you've got a SAML identity provider. That could be OpenID Connect, OAuth, etc., that we already talked about and went through in creating the admin console and adding applications, etc. You can also then see the QR code that's delivered as a one-time QR code, and then the relying party, the application that I need to sign into, which is Google Workspace. So this is a simple overview of how we're deploying zero trust for user access. So let's talk about how TraitWare can be used. TraitWare can be deployed as the IDP for any organization that needs to deploy identity access management that doesn't have an existing solution. However, TraitWare really was created and started out to solve our personal frustrations with username and passwords. I believe that if you asked yourself honestly if you've had password frustration in the last 24 hours, your answer would be yes. So let's talk about, let's say you're a big organization that's already deployed an Azure SSO or a deployment of Okta, or you're using modern zero trust access through AppGate, etc. Or you're accessing VDI environments through vCenter or other VMware applications or Citrix. TraitWare can be used for IDP, or it can be used as just the passwordless multi-factor authenticated zero trust access to your existing identity access management platform. Whether you're using a solution like Okta, Ping, ForgeRock, Azure SSO, any of the IAM solutions that are out there today that accept a SAML or OpenID Connect integration, TraitWare can sit in front of. But we also know that there's a lot of organizations out there, enterprise or small to medium enterprises as well, that don't necessarily have a central identity repository yet. So TraitWare can become that IDP for them. If you're just in need of moving away from managing credentials on top of managing an MFA module that is frustrating for your admins to have to manage both, and it's expensive, we can combine all of that into one aspect of zero trust access for your users. Again, either becoming the IDP for you, or we can sit in front of your existing IDP or IAM solution as a passwordless MFA inherent login for that. All right, so as one other application or different type of environment to access using TraitWare's zero trust access, we're going to show you a login through SSH to a Linux environment. So once again, all I'm going to do is use my software-based token to do that. And on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see, and I'll actually move this so you can get a better view of it, my phone screen. And then I'm going to use PuTTY to create a terminal and then do a Linux login with passwordless MFA inherent. So I click Open. It's going to bring up my terminal window. I will make this bigger. Actually, I'm going to make it different size so that I can still show the phone screen. So on the left, you see my phone screen. On the right, you'll see the terminal login. So for the terminal login, I'm going to select number 1, and I'm going to hit Enter. Then I'm going to open up my TraitWare app. I'm going to select the account associated with this. It's going to scan my face. It's going to bring up the applications, but to log in on the screen, it's going to scan QR code. And I just authenticated to my Linux environment using passwordless 3-touch login, multi-factor inherent. So this again works on all of your cloud web apps, works for Linux environments, and it works direct to your Windows box. We'd love to answer any questions you have.